to Washington, and correspondent David Smith. David, it's Thanksgiving. The president's not taking the day off when it comes to this one, though.
Indeed. No quiet times for Donald Trump, or indeed those who follow him, and also really breaking with precedent because he made a phone call to members of the US military for Thanksgiving, and that's normally just a festive, ceremonial occasion without much to remark on, and he turned even that into a political diatribe, and he grumbled to them about what's happening at the border and the intervention of the courts, and subsequently then spent some time talking to reporters where he again backed up what he's been saying on Twitter, particular criticism for the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals in the United States, which he says has actually struck down Trump administration policies 70-odd% of the time. And he again referenced Justice Roberts, claiming that he was wrong to defend the courts in the way that he has. Roberts, of course, putting out that statement, as you heard, saying there are no Obama judges, there are no Trump judges, and the president fiercely disagreeing with that. And just to step back for a moment, that kind of back and forth between the United States president and the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, really, truly extraordinary. They do tend to always stay in their own lanes and not clash in any way like that.
Yeah, you probably have to go back to the 1930s and FDR for something on par. David Smith, I'm curious to know what the reactions are in conservative circles in particular, because conservatives see the Constitution as something sacred, the separation of powers, as written up by the founding fathers, as they call them. The idea of the U.S. president sparring with the Supreme Court justice in this way, what are the reactions?
Striking for its silence, to be honest. What we have seen in the last 2 or 3 years is the Republican Party and the conservative movement really be taken over by Donald Trump. And even the midterm elections, where he fared bad in some ways, probably reaffirmed that. And many of the dissenting voices are leaving Capitol Hill. So, of course, you still have some conservative commentators and pundits, members of the so-called Never Trump movement, who would like to see a challenge to him in 2020. They are naturally critical of this clash with the Chief Justice. But probably what's more remarkable is the lack of outspokenness from Republicans in the House and the Senate. Of course, John McCain, who was one of the leading critics of Donald Trump there, died earlier this year. Other critics are leaving, and frankly, we've seen this all before. There was probably more backlash, for example, this week over Trump's comments on Saudi Arabia, where he refused to condemn the Crown Prince over the murder of a Washington Post columnist, and there even Republicans such as Lindsey Graham and Rand Paul, who are very loyal to Trump, even they spoke out, but on the Supreme Court, not so much, at least not yet.
All right, well, we'll see what happens. David Smith, many thanks. Happy Thanksgiving over in the United States to you.